From the shores of the Atlantic Ocean, it's Jake Smith. You'll see the Delmarva on his microphone. And from the Mountain West, Bill Colley for Boardwalk Potatoes. Good morning, Jake.
William, good morning. It continues to be a crazy, crazy news cycle from Georgia to all the rumors surrounding the offshore servers run by the CIA in Frankfurt, Germany. You know, it's interesting. We were doing a FaceTime with Nancy's cousin in the Nuremberg area last week. And I mentioned to her the rumors about offshore election servers in Germany, and they know nothing of this. None of this information is being broadcast in the news in Germany, which I thought was quite interesting. But I wanted to talk to you about all these rumors that persist. You and I have a friend who, and we know very well, who was in federal law enforcement. He's retired now, but he does still have contacts in federal law enforcement. His contacts told him that the rumors surrounding Gina Haspel, the CIA's involvement in stealing the election, the offshore servers, Gina Haspel being wounded in the attack to capture those servers was true. And Bill, we've lived through 9/11. We've lived through a lot of things in our lives. You and I, at one time, we were reporters. So when something like that happened, we would just blow it off. But if it persisted, it would kind of, I think, encourage us to do a little bit, at least, of investigation. How much investigation do you think is going on with this? But these rumors persist that the CIA and Gina Haspel were involved. She hasn't been seen in recent memory, has she?
No. First of all, European media is not going to be covering any of this. It's more in the tank than North American media is at the moment, which is to say pretty deep.
Yeah.
And then North American media, as far as covering this, let's not hold our breath. These people are breaths, I guess, in the because there's two of us, but the narrative has been put in place. In this day and age, media builds a narrative and then tries to make everything fit the narrative versus go out and cover the stories. It used to be just simply blamed on laziness, that a lot of reporters want someone else to do the work for them. But today, it's really the narrative. I've been reading the latest Rod Dreher book. Have you read that? It Live Not by Lies?
No.
And it really shows you that we have culturally moved into this area where they have decided there is a new right from their perspective, and everything has to be built according to that. Fascinating how he weaves this all together. And we're going down the road to totalitarianism, but not necessarily by government, but by elites, whether they be in high tech or media.
Yes, and they'll cancel you if you do not follow their directives, correct?
Right, and media simply does not like us in flyover country. And it's the one time, I think it was the executive editor of the New York Times said a couple of years ago about conservatives, well, we're trying really hard to understand them. Maybe you ought to hire a few. And David Brooks doesn't count.
No. And it's amazing when you think over the years that the old gray lady did have a conservative aspect of their daily paper, where they actually wanted a conservative aspect, a conservative point of view to the news. And that's no more, obviously, the New York Slimes, that's no more. And you know, just given the way the paper has been involved in various left-wing conspiracies over the past couple of years, you know, there's no chance that the New York Slimes would give any conservative a fair shot at any story, period. Just not going to happen.
One of my professors told me, and I was in college way back in the early 1980s, that the Times had been considered among the most conservative papers in the country right after World War II. But that started to break down in the 1960s as the hippies were coming out of journalism schools and filling the newsrooms, and it's continued for the last 50 years. And this is what we're left with. But again, these people have come to this with a mindset that is, I'll call it neo-Marxist, and everything else is considered, your faith is wrong. But they don't like Donald Trump, obviously, and haven't since the very beginning. I was thinking today, remember when he was running and he did a news conference and he had the Trump steaks there as well? Yeah. Trump knows how to annoy these people, but they just completely went off.
The wine and the water, there were bottles of Trump sparkling water and the Trump wines there too. That drove them absolutely crazy, Bill.
He's just an excellent marketer, and this was all part of it. But they didn't get it, and they said, "Well, he's not a serious candidate, and therefore we have to do whatever we can to stop him." And then he won, and they just kept up the effort to try and stop him. This morning you bring up conspiracies that are swirling around. This morning I was reading a story about how the president had said he was going to release all of the remaining documents about the Kennedy assassination, and then he's delayed doing that, and he may not do it. They may be released next year. But I keep going back to the fact that here we are 57 years after that crime, and we still can't. People don't want to give us all the truth because apparently some of it would be very embarrassing to the deep state. And if the deep state was involved 57 years ago, and with technology what it is today, and their connections to media and entertainment that they've built over the years, they're all, as I say, coming out of this neo-Marxist, godless philosophy. That if that be the case, that we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, they couldn't go out and shoot a president again, but they could find new ways to remove a president, and they could do it in such a nebulous way, spew enough fog that no one could really put it all together. And this is what we've seen happen. This has been a figurative assassination of the president.
No question about it. They have definitely figured out that if they throw so much doggy doo-doo against the wall, that at something will stick, and the rest of it will all be, I don't want to, I can't deal with it anymore. My mind is just overloaded. And that's what happens to the American public. Their minds get easily overloaded, and they have a hard time focusing on really what the main points are. And that's how Marxist state media works, Bill. But let's just go back for this Gina Haspel thing. I can't tell you how many messages in the last 2 weeks I have received from my listeners asking me, watch this, watch that. What do you think about the Gina Haspel thing? What do you think? Bill, how should the average American view these rumors? I mean, there's absolutely no basis in fact, yes, whatsoever. Nothing has been confirmed, but yet again, nothing has been denied either. How should the average American respond to this kind of thing?
Well, the average American should realize that ever since its creation, the CIA came out, of course, the Operation of Strategic Services, Bill Donovan in World War II. The history.
Truman created what is the modern day CIA today.
It's the nature of the work it does, because it is so clandestine. The culture has grown there that it from the very beginning, it was built to subvert questions that, because at the time it was national security, right? If we were asking questions and it became public, we didn't want the enemy in the Cold War to know certain things that were going on. But that culture has given them it is a lawless culture.
International assassinations, undermining governments, removing one government and replacing it with a puppet regime. There's been all sorts of stuff that the CIA has been involved with. But the biggest problem of all is that there is no control that anyone in this country has over the CIA, and that includes the President of the United States. And that is what General Flynn was charged with cleaning up by President Trump, and why they went after him so hard and fast, didn't they?
Yes. And I think once someone is actually appointed to the role of the director, they quickly inculcate that culture, and they look at this as their fiefdom. And Haspel's background at times, as we understand, she was a career bureaucrat anyway, right?
Yeah. Before she even became CIA director, she was. And so was Brennan, really. I mean, think about it.
These are people who, they're operating a shadow government. And in their minds, they're like the media. They think we're right, Trump is wrong, the voters were wrong. So therefore, we have to remove this threat to our particular, in the case of the CIA or any of these 3- and 4-letter agencies, he is a threat to their future, their existence.
Oh, absolutely.
And he had to go. And in Haspel's case, we were talking just before we started the program. She's under the radar now. Where the heck is she? Is she in some sort of a safe house? Is she just hiding out in her own home in the suburbs? Who knows? But if the media would do its job, the media would go find her.
She was wounded. She was on her way to Gitmo until she started giving up information about who was involved with this. Now, whether that's true or not, I mean, is it possible that they were bringing her, they told her as leverage they were going to transfer her to Gitmo? Certainly possible. But this morning you see that one of George Soros' executives is going to be on the Biden cabinet. Going to be in the Biden cabinet. So, you start putting two and two together. Should we totally ignore these things? No, we can't. But then at the same time, you have to understand that what the future of this nation, what we are facing, is so damaging to our children and our children's children. Bill, you sent me a perfect link to that Johnny Carson interview with Desi Arnaz. Now you say, Jake, what does that have to do with what we're talking about here? I actually reposted it on Facebook yesterday. It was an interview that Johnny Carson did with Desi Arnaz and the normal team that was there. I think that who I'm just trying to think who else? I guess Don Rickles was on the.
Don Rickles, Bob Hope.
Yeah, Bob Hope was on. Thank you. And I think maybe Desi Arnaz Jr. was on as well. But think about the America that we've lost and think about the America that we're losing. And this is our culture that's being destroyed. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, Arnaz, he spoke about why he came to this country, because the revolutions in Cuba were just, they were happening one after another. And he came here for liberty and really to save his life.
Batista was obviously in power then, but it was a corrupt government.
He managed to succeed, though, through hard work and just, brought himself up by his bootstraps.
To become one of the most talented and sought after producer directors in television history. A lot of people don't know that about Desi Arnaz. They just think, wow, that's Ricky Ricardo. He developed the 3-camera system for television that was the first of its kind. He developed a way to shoot television that is still being used to produce TV shows today. He was that smart. He was an amazing man. And by the way, I know several people who knew Desi Arnaz personally, and they said, regardless of what went on between he and Lucy, he was the most honest and decent people and hardworking people that you will ever meet in your entire life. He was loved, not so much with Lucy and her communist background, but we'll leave that for another day, Bill. But I'm just saying that if you watched this video, this 15-minute interview between Johnny Carson and Desi Arnaz is talking to Bob Hope, that America is being ripped away from us. That is our culture. That is our America. And it's being destroyed. And if you really don't understand what we're fighting for and what we're trying to preserve, yes, our national security, certainly, but our culture. And you can have 100 Stacey Abrams in this country. And by the way, she's a very dangerous woman, Stacey Abrams. Do not lose sight of the fact. 100 Stacey Abrams could totally destroy what one atom bomb could in this country. There's no question about it, Bill. I'll give you the last word before we wrap things up.
And I referenced the Dreher book. I'm 3/4 of the way through it this weekend already. And he references Aldous Huxley and Huxley's Brave New World. And just the other day, a friend of mine posted a 1958 interview from Huxley that was done by Mike Wallace at ABC. Apparently Wallace was working there before his CBS days, and said everything Huxley is saying from 62 years ago is so spot on. And that was what Dreher was talking about in his book, is that we are fast losing everything we have. And unless we can find a way to put that, the cornerstone of our culture was really our Judeo-Christian heritage.
Right.
And if we cannot find a way to rebuild that and get our kids away from these screens and government, we'll have access to all of this information that is the tracking that is done by Google and our cell phone providers and the like. We're toast. I mean, we're done. And it's as he calls it, a soft totalitarianism that will take over, and that'll happen without anyone even firing a shot, unless people start being aware of that they're being played, that this is a psyop that is going on, and they've got to push back. The question is, how many will be needed, and will there be enough?
Well, we see, Bill, I see it from my listeners who contact me and call into my show. People are praying more. People are certainly cognizant of the role, God's role in this country, and they're paying more attention to our Judeo-Christian values and how much damage we've done to this country since the 1980s, since God was shown the door. And you know what? St. Therese always says there's grace in everything, a blessing in everything. Perhaps this, if you want to call it a Judeo-Christian awakening in this country, so be it. If we have to go through something like this for a spiritual awakening in this country, well, you know what? Maybe God works in mysterious ways. This is perhaps what has to happen. Your final word here.
When you got nothing else left, there used to be an old priest that I knew from way back in my days in Syracuse, New York, and he had recovered a couple of times from cancer and was running marathons, and he just seemed to be miraculously cured. But the diocese ran a whole series of advertisements on our radio station where he would talk about how when you get to the point where you've got nothing left, and he would say, why not try God? I think you touched on something, that's still the most powerful force in the universe, and nothing can match it. And people who, even if there's only 10 of us, remember, you've got Abraham bargaining with God in the Bible when it comes to Sodom and Gomorrah. And he keeps adding some numbers. If I find these people, the numbers are going to get smaller and smaller. That's the point. If just a number of people out there will maintain this and continue to seek that intervention, then I think that, yes, indeed, there's still a great deal of hope, because I'm told he wins in the end.
Yes, Bill, as you know, I've been praying like crazy, novenas like crazy, and I have received signs myself that only St. Therese and I would recognize that she's given me. And those signs mean one of two things. President Trump is going to win, or don't worry, God will win in the end. So either way, we win.
Victory would be a good thing just about now. We certainly
need victory.
After 2020, we need a few bright lights at the end of this tunnel.
We certainly do. Well, I'm Jake Smith from the Delmarva Peninsula on what is a sunny but chilly day here on the East Coast. My dear friend Bill Colley is in Twin Falls, Idaho, where what's the weather like there today, William?
It is currently 16 and clear skies.
Well, we got you beat on the temperature. But we will be meeting again very, very shortly. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion on the latest Boardwalk Potatoes. Bill Colley, Twin Falls, Idaho. Jake Smith here on the Delmarva Peninsula. Thanks for watching. And we'll be back soon with another podcast on the, I'd like to say award-winning, but maybe at some point, the future award-winning Boardwalk Potatoes. Thanks for watching.